Three, two, one. What's happening, guys? This is Logan Robinson from Here the Spear, presented to you by NoGameDay.com. We are here on a late Sunday, early now morning after Florida State falls to NC State 19-17. Florida State doesn't get 1 point on the board in the second half after a really strong start. Florida State having a 17-3 lead. This thing hits a whole 180, and Florida State can't do anything, it seems like. Offensively, Jordan Travis has his roughest game of the year, and Florida State's defense loses to, from what we heard on the ESPN podcast, a walk-on quarterback with Chambers. D-Lou is with me, our editor-in-chief at NoGameDay.com. Dustin, first reaction after this one. Now Florida State starting the season 4-2.
A total meltdown. Just like I wrote in my recap for this game, it felt just like 10 years ago. 2012, Florida State comes into North Carolina State, builds up a 16-0 halftime lead, and then somehow the Wolfpack come back and win 17-16. And then same thing here, Florida State, 2-possession lead, 17-3 at halftime, and something changed during that break on the Wolfpack side, and they come back despite an injury to their starting quarterback, outscore FSU 16-0, and get the W. So just a complete meltdown on Florida State side of things. And I know Mike Norvell, he quickly said this is 100% on me during his post-game presser. And, there were a couple questionable offensive calls throughout the game and in that second half. But at the end of the day, that's a throw that we've seen Jordan Travis make before. Might have been some defensive holding there. We'll have to go back and take a look at it. But the ball simply sailed on him. The interception before that was a bad throw, just in general. And the defense couldn't get a stop to save their lives in that second half. Missed tackle after missed tackle, penalty after penalty. Florida State had 9 penalties in the second half last week against Wake Forest. They have 7 penalties in the second half this week against North Carolina State. So now that's becoming a little bit of a trend. So just a disappointing performance on all sides after what looked like an upset in the making in that first half.
It did. I mean, Florida State was rolling there and had, the game, it was all on them, what they wanted to do with it. And then you go into that second half and a switch happens. And then there's a variety of different injuries. It felt like every other play, definitely on Florida State's defense, where those guys dropping like flies. And that just seems to be the case for Florida State and their players on road games this season. It happened against Louisville. Then you see this go on here in Raleigh. And we always know, Florida State fans know Raleigh very well. They're usually not the best of luck whenever you go up there and travel. Florida State was managing this game and just things fell off. And, Jordan Travis was throwing some really pretty balls to start off that game, drops left and right. You had Johnny Wilson have that drop. You had Malik McLean drop a touchdown there in the end zone. All throughout the night, there was drops. You also had Marquise and Douglas. It was just a really good play by the defenders there, but had a chance there with the ball. Just atrocious. He goes 15 of 30 on the night for Jordan Travis, two interceptions also. Just rough night and over 100 yards rushing. It's such a weird night for Jordan Travis and that offense. Just completely off from 2 quarters to the next 2 quarters. Something that we haven't seen. I feel like we've seen a lot in the last 5 years, Dustin, but this is a new one, and Florida State screwed themselves.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much you can say about it. I think the bad vibes started to pop up pretty early in that second half. NC State, they go right down the field on their first possession of the third quarter. Florida State's defense couldn't even get them into a third down, and it's back to 17-10 in a couple of minutes. The FSU's offense comes out. Back-to-back punts. Well, I guess 3 straight punts to begin the second half. And the third one was where we switched over to the fourth quarter. And Alex Mastermano, 4th and 17. NC State brings pressure. He keeps the ball, rolls out to the right. Can't really decide whether I should kick this, I should take it. If he would have took it, he probably would have got the first down. But he decides to kick it. He's already past the line of scrimmage. The rule, for some reason, is loss of down, which puts NC State already in field goal range. And Logan, that's when the game got even drunker because FSU gets a sack, 2 straight penalties on NC State. Suddenly it's 3rd and 40, and the Wolfpack end up kicking a 50-yard field goal. That wasn't the one to put them up. That put them I think down a point, but still just a really weird sequence. And Florida State's offense, 93 total yards in the second half after compiling over 200 in the first 30 minutes, where they were able to get 177 yards on the ground in that first half, and they're limited to 29 in the second half when they really needed to put it on the ground and run out some clock. It was a pretty poor performance.
Yep. And, going back to some things that we saw last week with Florida State hurting themselves once again in penalties, which Florida State started so great in to start off the 2022 campaign. And then I don't know what's going on. A lot of undisciplined, silly mistakes. And, Jazz and Turrentine, once again, he always gets his holding call. And at least it got it out of the way early. But you lose another 100 yards in penalties once again. It's got to start. They got to start off fresh now. I mean, they got to start from the bottom and go back and see what needs to be fixed. I mean, play calling, discipline. I still think the drive is there. Yes, that's something Florida State has been able to find that turnaround there. The drive is still there to win games, but is it though when you're making all those drops out on the field, definitely on third down, which you couldn't, I think there was 2 or 3 first downs in the second half for Florida State, and it took them all the way to get into the fourth quarter for that to happen on your last long drive there. That's pathetic. That's pathetic. Man, it's about as plain as it gets. I don't know if it's, and Mike Norvell talked about it after the game. He said that it was 100% on me, the outcome of the game, 100% on me. And I think it's 50-50. I think there's a lot of things that Mike Norvell, little wishy-washy on what he's doing there with the play calling on a few things. Dustin, personally for you, do you take that shot there to Micah Pittman and that end zone, and what is a second down and 10, is it, when that play was going on? It
was around there, and I think 40-something seconds left. But I don't know if I'm taking the throw to Pittman on that play, but I'm definitely putting the ball in the air in that scenario. I know everyone, in hindsight, they're now saying, oh, Florida State should have run the ball and they should have just kicked the field goal. But do we remember? We've talked about Ryan Fitzgerald's struggles coming into this game. He had missed 5 of his last 7 in-game kicks. It was good to see him hit that 47-yarder at the conclusion of the second quarter. But did you really want to put the game in his hands? I don't know that that's something that Florida State wanted to do. We saw him go for a 4th and 3 on from the 23 in that first half instead of kicking a 40-yard field goal. They did kick the 47-yard at the end of the half, but that's because there was no other play to make in that scenario other than a Hail Mary. I think the offense and Mike Norvell, they were trying to get into that end zone rather than, putting it into Fitzgerald's hands to decide the game. And unfortunately, we'll have to go back and look at the play. Seemed like maybe there was some defensive holding there on Micah Pittman. And then the throw also from Jordan, it sailed on him. That was a really poor throw on an off night from the quarterback, his worst performance so far in 2022. And unfortunately, it came tonight for Florida State, and it came up in a crucial scenario.
Yeah, that last interception there, Jordan Travis, both times targeting Micah Pittman in this game, and resulted in interceptions. And that first pick, that was the worst throw that I've seen Jordan Travis have all season, was just firing off on his back foot in front of 3 defenders, and of course that gets intercepted and ruins that drive. And I don't know, it just seemed mentally out there in that second half. He goes over to the sideline, really almost embarrassed with himself and trying to listen to Mike Norvell. And it was just such a weird exchange I was seeing from that. And I'm wondering how that will continue, because now Coach Tokar, as Florida State's quarterbacks coach, are going to go back in the film room and try to clean up a lot of this stuff. Penalties, I want to go to some injuries here. Treshaun Ward, you're leading running back right now in a sling on the sideline. And after the first quarter, when Robert Cooper went down, we never got to see him back out there. Didn't really get to see much. We saw Robert Cooper, I think, face down, laying down. Didn't get to see, we're at home, so didn't get to see him go off the field or anything. But those are 2 starters on both offense and defense that we did not see coming back into the game. And Robert Cooper, we'll see if we get some word on that. Some tough loss. And you also had Jared Verse go down. You had Malcolm Ray go down. You had Jared Jackson, who I don't think came back into the game.
Knowles went down.
Um,
I mean,
let-
Jamie Robinson went down.
what in the world, man? What in the hell? What? I mean, I don't know.
Mike Norvell
I
went
never.
down at the end of the game after Travis threw
He
that
did.
pick.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he did. Just
Man,
bad luck all around. But yeah, defensively, you definitely saw some signs. I thought Tatum Bethune was that star there for Florida State tonight, making some big time plays. Definitely on third down, come away some tackle for losses. Pat Payton too. Jared Verse, as usual, doing some things, but just they were out there on the field a ton, man. I mean, when you're getting one first down or two first downs,
yeah.
like at some point these guys are gassed, and there's a few guys that were able to step up and make some plays, but just not enough.
To your point, second half, time of possession, NC State 20 minutes, 54 seconds, Florida State 9 minutes and 6 seconds. And I'm pretty sure about half of that came on the final drive of the game where they were trying to go get those game-winning points. So it was just awful. You look at the stats, Florida State, we talked about third down conversions being huge, with NC State being one of the best defenses on third down. FSU goes 4 of 8 in the first half, but just 1 of 5 in the second half. They only get 5 first downs in the entire second half, a 2.9 yards per carry average on the ground. North Carolina State's defense really stiffened up, and for whatever reason, Florida State's offense couldn't get it done off night from Jordan Travis, the receivers as well. With the drops, aided by the penalties, all around, just not a really good performance.
No, and you also go back to last week too. Jordan Travis having that fumble against Wake Forest. Now, back-to-back weeks. Now, sadly, this is a double turnover game for JT. Just off. Something's not right. And now looking forward to next week, Florida State's got a major opponent coming in with Clemson after they just took care of business at Boston College tonight. It doesn't get any easier. At least you'll be at home. You don't have to travel anywhere. But this team has a big time battle ahead of them. And, we talked about it and wanted to see how they would respond. And they responded good in this game, but only for 2 quarters. This team still is trying to figure out how to put games away. I tweeted that during the game, and sure enough, they are still fighting to figure out how to put games away. And I don't think it's just the team; it's on the coaching staff too. And it all starts with Mike Norvell. You've got to finish the game. You have the talent. You've got the playmakers. It's shown all throughout those first 4 games of the season. But at some point, do we have a discussion next week on the pod and say, Florida State faced 4 teams. You had LSU week 1. You went to Louisville. That was a big win. But after that, how good is this team really? How good is this team really? And we're showing up now with Florida State facing 2 ranked opponents that they can't compete right now in some of these games. They competed since 1917, but that game should have been in Florida State's hand ending the third quarter, in my opinion.
I think the bigger question maybe is Florida State going to be able to play a complete game at some point in 2022? You have a really good first half tonight, completely falls off. Last week, the first half was pretty awful, and then Florida State started fighting in those final 2 quarters to give themselves a chance against Wake Forest. The difference in the first half and the Louisville game to the second half, where FSU came out and outscored Louisville 21-10 to win, even to the LSU game, where FSU was exceptional for, I guess, really 2.5 quarters, if not 3 full quarters before that fourth quarter meltdown against LSU. So are they going to get, and I don't really count Duquesne or Boston College into the equation here, but are we going to get a full game from this team against a quality opponent? We talked a lot about learning, really a ton about FSU over these 3 games against Wake Forest, North Carolina State, and Clemson. And so far, we've learned that they're just too inconsistent right now to be among the top teams in the conference.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention beat up.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's just we're definitely going to tell next weekend when Clemson comes into town. But
and BC gave Clemson a game tonight.
Yeah, what's that? What was that ending of that score?
Last time I saw it, it was 24-3, but BC was leading, and I mean, all things considered, on the road in Death Valley, Florida State beat them worse than that.
Yeah, Dabo Swinney's never made the trip down here against Mike Norvell during his tenure too. So that's worth
Well, they
noting.
did. They just had
So
to get back on the plane.
yeah, they just never faced one another.
Expensive little flight to hop on and right back on. 31-3 was the final score for Clemson BC.
So somewhat competitive, but yeah, not even close. They took care of business, and that's going to be coming into Tallahassee. And I was talking with my dad too after this game, just wondering, how good is this team actually? There's a good chance they go 0-3 in this series, and that kind of tells us our answer there. You were hoping you'd at least get 1 out of 3, but now you're facing your toughest opponent. Luckily, it's at home, but this team's got to respond. And it starts off with your 2 biggest guys and 2 biggest men, and that's Mike Norvell and Jordan Travis. Both of those have to respond here going into a massive ACC opponent with Dabo Swinney this upcoming weekend. This team has got to get through and fight and finish these games. It's bad. And what is the title of our piece, D-Lou? A decade since 2012 when Florida State blew that lead in Raleigh.
Yeah, 10 years later.
Should have seen this one coming.
Well, I kind of did once they scored that touchdown in the third quarter and Florida State went back-to-back 3-and-out. It was like, oh wow, I've seen this script before. All the way to the final drive, which think back to 2012. FSU's defense was the one to blow it with NC State going right down the field and converting a couple 4th downs and finally scoring with a couple seconds left. And then tonight, it was the offense who put themselves in a position to win this game, but a couple miscues and come up short, unfortunately.
Yep. Anything else from you, D-Lou, before we wrap up? It's late. We always go live on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. And this week we will be previewing Florida State versus Clemson, as we've mentioned a few times on here. Just absolute collapse from Florida State Seminoles and Mike Norvell and company. We got to see how they respond. We'll be out there. I'll be there for the presser on Monday morning, and we'll hear from Mike Norvell as he starts in preparation for a major matchup. First time of Dabo Swinney coming in and facing him inside Doak Campbell Stadium. And then we'll be at practice on Tuesday and Wednesday, giving live updates and our observations from those 2 practices. So Florida State goes up to Raleigh, gets close almost. Yeah, I was say gets close to almost winning this one, leaving Raleigh with the win, but it just doesn't happen. Florida State falls to NC State 19-17. D-Lo, last comments.
I was just going to say final things. When you look at the stat sheet, it's like, how did Florida State not win this game? Outgained North Carolina State by 80 yards, outpassed them, outrushed them. Yeah, had less first downs, but had a better 3rd down conversion percentage and more first downs. Went perfect in the red zone, scored more touchdowns than North Carolina State, averaged 2.3 yards more plays than North Carolina State. NC State did have the time of possession advantage, but that was really what doomed Florida State in the end, time possession, and they had one more turnover than NC State. But when you look at that box score, it's like, wow, Florida State, they really, really gave one away tonight, and it's going to be a disappointing flight back to Tallahassee. We'll hear again from Mike Norvell and the coordinators on Monday, and we'll start to see how this team responds on Tuesday and Wednesday ahead of, a huge game against top 5 Clemson team. And like you said, it's a chance to prevent going 0-3 in this stretch, which was the worst case scenario coming into it. I thought we were all on the same page that Florida State would probably pull one of these games out, maybe 2 at the best case, but 0-3 was not something that we saw coming.
Nope. And Mike Norvell, not happy. Well, we'll see you guys on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. as we preview that big time matchup with Mike Norvell versus Dabo Swinney. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us tonight. If you're on here, feel free to share with your friends and like it. I know some of y'all probably do not want to hit the like button right now, so wouldn't blame you. I appreciate it. Goes out there to more FSU fans, so we'd appreciate it. Everybody have a great rest of y'all's weekend. We'll talk to you guys on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. See ya.